Hi, I'm Dave Weaver, and we're going to be learning about how to build prototypes. We'll be covering some of the basics that you'll be able to use in all sorts of situations, and we have a bit of a fun project to learn them with. So let's do it. So we're going to take this plant pot, which is provided in a file that I have in the description that you can download yourself, and this is the behavior we're going to build. So we have plant pots that we can hover over and they peek out, and when we click, they pop out with a nice little bounce, and they stay in that state. Right? We're working with plant pots. In the future, you'll be working with buttons and switches and other things that have states, but it's the same principle, and I think it's a more fun way to learn about it. So let's start by closing this preview window, and let's look at our plant pot. We're going to need an open state like this, and let's build another frame with the closed state of this and try to build a simple animation between the two. So I've just lowered this flower inside. I'm going to click the down arrow a few more times to make sure it's really in there. Yep. And now let's call this frame closed. And the behavior I'm looking for is if I click on the plant pot here, it will take me to this frame. So let's try that first of all. Now I can start an animation on a particular object by just double clicking and getting to that particular layer. So I want to click on this plant pot and it'll take me here. Now we have to switch to prototype mode, which is available over here. And once you're in prototype mode, you'll see these little pluses appear when you're hovering over frames or objects. And it's asking, what interaction behavior are you looking for on this object? So in this case, we want to click on the plant pot and it'll take us to this frame. So I just clicked and dragged over here. There's a description of the interaction here, which we'll cover in more detail in a minute, but you get the idea that it's not just clicks that are available. You can do other things as well. But for now, we're just dealing with clicks. On the click, navigate to open. That makes sense. And just do it instantly. We're not going to do anything clever yet. I just want to see this in action. And once we get there, let's make it so that if we click on this plant pot, it'll take us back to this frame. So we get to go in both directions. On click, navigate to, and so on. Now, I can just highlight this closed frame and hit the Shift-Spacebar, and that opens up a little preview window for me so I can see how the animation works. So I'm just going to click on this plant pot, and you can see it took us to the other frame. And then I click again, and it goes back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, we've built a very simple, but, effective animation right out of the gate with just 2 frames. Now, I wanted that hover behavior, if you remember. So when my mouse is over the plant pot, there's another state where it's sort of peeking out. Well, let's make a little space here. I'm going to zoom out a bit. I'm going to make a copy of this closed one. And I'm going to delete the interactions that sort of came along when I copied it. Okay, so now there's nothing attached. In this case, I want another behavior. When I hover over this plant pot in the closed state, I want to show, let's rename this now, peek. And let's move the flower up a little bit so it's peeking out. So I need to move this flower that's inside this pot up a little bit. How do you get to it? Well, one way I do it is go to Option, right click, and on the PC, I believe that's the control key with the right click, and I can pick which layer I want directly. I want the flower layer, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit till it's peeking out like that. Okay, so now I've got a peek. What is the behavior? So it's going to be based on this plant pot again, but instead of clicking, you'll see that there is another behavior available called while hovering, which kind of works in both directions. So if I'm hovering with my mouse, it'll switch to the peek. And if I stop hovering, it'll go back. So you get kind of 2 directions defined with one prototype behavior while hovering like that. So it should go there and come back once I'm not hovering anymore. Let's try it. So again, I'll start with the closed one, hit Shift-Spacebar to open up my preview window, and let's see what happens. Oh, it's already working. Look at that. So when I hover my mouse over it, it peeks up. And when I move away, it goes back down again. Now if I click, it's not working. You know why? Because once we're hovering, we're actually in this frame, and we haven't defined what happens if I click on this one. So we've lost our ability to click on this one. Let's do something here. I'm going to put another behavior on the hover one, and this will be on click, navigate to open, instant. Okay, I think we've got all our bases covered now. So back to closed, because I want to start at this point. Let's see what our behavior is like. Peek, looks good. If I click, yes, it takes me back. And if I click again, it goes back, but then immediately hovers again. So we're going to have to figure out how to get around that. Okay. So this comes up quite a bit when you're dealing with buttons and hovers and states. When I go back to the original state, I don't want hover. I want to be in some other temporary state where it still looks closed until maybe I move away and come back. We call that kind of a waiting state or an intermediate state. Let's build that one too. So it'll look just like closed, but it will be a little different. I'm going to remove all of the interactions that come with it because they're probably incorrect. I'm going to call this one wait. And the purpose of this one again is so that once it's open and you click on it, instead of going right back to closed again where we have this hover behavior, let's wait in this period until the mouse moves away and then we can go back to closed. Okay, so in this case, don't click, and here's a trick, you can drag the arrow. This is the on-click navigate back home. Let's just say no, I'll go to this wait one first. And then from wait, I want to go back here only when, and here's another one, when the mouse leaves. So there's no clicking, there's no ending of hovering, it's just once the mouse leaves this one, then please switch to closed. I think we got it covered, look at that. So closed, hover to get to peak, click to get to open, click to get to wait, and then mouse leave takes you back home. So let's again start with closed and see what happens. Peek, back and forth, good. Click on it, nice. Click on it again, goes home, no hovering behavior. I move my mouse away, I move my mouse back, and there it is again. That's exactly what I wanted. Now we got this nice sort of bouncing behavior on this hover. I'd like it everywhere. So I'd like this sort of bounciness in all of my interactions. And I can do that by highlighting all of my prototype behaviors and picking something called Smart Animate. Once you pick Smart Animate, you get to pick different curves that describe the motion that takes place in between. I'm just going to use ease in and out back, which I'll explain further in a second. Let's see how this behaves. I'm going to go back to my closed one and try my preview. Oh, that's nice. So you can see it adds a little bit of a perky bounce, you know, when it's popping up and down. Everything just sort of looks more alive, you know, it's more fun. So I think we've got all the behaviors working. Everything looks good. Now, this is fine for going frame to frame, which you do quite a bit of prototyping, moving from frames to frames. So what if we want multiple plant pots at the same time on the same frame, all behaving this way? Well, what we're talking about then is a component, because components also can have this animated behavior built into them. So let's take a look at how to convert these ideas that we've just built in frames into a component so we can put multiple anywhere we like. I'm going to close this for the time being. One way we could do this is to convert these frames into what we'd call a component set. So I'm going to switch back to design mode. Before I do, I just want to get rid of the excess space on the frame, because really I just want this inner box to be the size of the component that I'm building. Now you might not be aware, but there is a button here that shrinks the sizes of frames to match the size of their contents. So one click brings those frames all down to size. Fantastic. Let me just sort of organize these a bit so they're sort of in chronological order here, more or less. And I'm going to highlight all of them and use this trick called Create Component Set. And we've actually created now a component where each of these original frames is a variant of that component. Let's call this PlantBot. And if we click on one of these, you'll see that the variant name is already matching the original frame name. So we've saved ourselves a bit of work. Open, wait, and so on. Now what's really cool about animation in components is that it's all the same stuff we were just building. So we have our closed state here. I go to prototype. And look, it's already got them from the frames. We've got here while hovering, that's all good. I think it's all going to be correct. The only difference I want to point out though is that instead of saying navigate to, the action is now changed to and it's a specific variant that it's changing to. As opposed to navigate to frame, it's now changed to a variant. You can see them all in here. But it's brought over the animation, it's brought over everything. So that's made our work quite easy. Let's see if this works. Well, we haven't got it anywhere yet, so we're going to have to build a frame that's going to contain our animation. So let's take a copy of our closed plant pot. I can just option drag it off of here, and that creates an instance of that component. Before I go any further, let's just do a quick check that that already works. I'm going to click on frame 55 here, Shift-Spacebar to bring up the preview, and I'm going to hover over it and see what happens. Already that's working. Clicking is working. Clicking is working. Excellent. Okay. I wanted to make the closed state to be a gray plant pot, just so it's really clear. I'm going to go back to design for a second here. Change the fill to something more gray. Okay. I forgot to do this one. Here's another good keyboard shortcut. Control-C. I want to change the fill of this one. Control-C takes me straight to the eyedropper. I can click on this. I don't even have to go to the fill on the side. Beautiful. Let's try this again. Just make sure that looks better. Shift-Spacebar. Yeah, I kind of like the color change too. Don't know why. Just feels better. Now, what's nice about this is a component. So anytime we duplicate it, let's just maybe drag a few of them on here. Command-D a few times and preview this. They all get that behavior built in. I can have different ones in different states. It's so cool. Now you can imagine again that these are switches or buttons that have different states that you can hover or click on and they do things. But it's exactly the same behavior. You have components with animation that describes how they change when the mouse hovers, clicks, various other actions that take place. I mean, have some fun with it. It's kind of a fun way to play with prototyping and get something enjoyable out of it instead of just buttons all the time. You're going to have plenty of time working on buttons ahead of you. I hope you have some fun with it, and I'll talk to you again real soon.